obviously feel the same as I did a couple days ago, and agree with Leon that the organization as a whole has taken a step back, and that starts with me. Starts with Leon. We all can be better, and we all need to be better.
The window everyone keeps pointing to is starting to look a lot smaller from the outside. That is the part Edmonton cannot argue with anymore, because right now, two players who left this franchise, or got compared to it, are doing something the Oilers have not been able to do with the greatest player on the planet. They are winning in June. They are standing under the lights when it actually counts. And Connor McDavid, the man every front office decision in that city gets measured against, is watching it happen again from somewhere else. That is not a hot take. That is just the calendar doing its job. Think about what the Oilers have been selling for the better part of a decade now. The pitch never really changes. McDavid is here. Draisaitl is here. The window is open. One more piece, one more coaching hire, one more goaltender, one more defensive tweak, and this team finally breaks through. Every summer starts with that same energy. Every October carries that same belief. And every spring, somehow, the story ends before the last chapter. People in Edmonton have been patient. Genuinely patient. The kind of patient that comes from watching a generational talent suit up every single night and give you everything he has. McDavid does not coast. He does not disappear in big moments. He is not the problem, and everyone who watches hockey honestly knows that. But knowing he is not the problem does not make the problem disappear. It just makes the whole thing more painful to sit with. Because here is what makes this current moment so uncomfortable for that franchise. Taylor Hall is on a contender. The guy Edmonton moved on from, the guy who became a walking symbol of this organization's inability to build correctly around elite talent, is now positioned to potentially win the thing McDavid has been chasing his entire career. That sentence alone should stop every decision-maker in that building cold. Not because Hall is better than McDavid. He is not. Not because Hall deserved more loyalty or more patience from Edmonton specifically. That is a whole separate conversation. But because Hall getting closer to a cup than McDavid right now tells you something real about how this sport works. It tells you that the best player in a generation is not a guarantee. He is a foundation. And if the foundation is all you have, you are not building a championship. You are just building a very impressive foundation. Then you add Mitch Marner into this, and the temperature in that city probably rises another 10 degrees. Marner carried criticism for years that honestly went beyond fair. The intensity around him in Toronto turned into something bigger than one player should have to carry. And now he is on a team that gave him a chance to win, and he is running with it. Whatever noise followed him out of Toronto, he is not thinking about it right now. He is focused on something McDavid still has not touched. That is where the sting really comes from. It is not envy of the individual. It is the reminder that being the best does not protect you from the sport's cruelest reality. Other guys who face more doubt, more criticism, more public pressure, are suddenly standing where Edmonton's franchise player should be standing. That is not a narrative trick. That is just what is happening. And for Stan Bowman, the man now responsible for fixing this, there should be no soft reading of this moment. This is not a situation where careful optimism and incremental improvement gets the job done. The Oilers have tried that version. They have shuffled the supporting cast. They brought in different voices behind the bench. They adjusted lines and changed systems and made the kind of moves that look reasonable on paper without ever truly changing the ceiling of what this team is. The result is always some version of the same ending. Deep enough to give you hope, not deep enough to finish it. McDavid will be 30 years old next season. His prime is not gone. The idea that his window is closing tomorrow is an overstatement, and anyone telling you otherwise is probably working too hard for the headline. But the window does not stay open forever in this league. It never does. And every year that passes without a cup is a year the conversation gets heavier. It is a year where the comparisons multiply. It is a year where a story like this one, Hall and Marner advancing while McDavid watches, does not just sting in the moment. It adds to a running total that eventually becomes the defining narrative of a career. Nobody in Edmonton wants that for him. Nobody who genuinely watches him play wants that for him. That is exactly why this offseason cannot be another version of close enough. Bowman has to look at this roster without the protective lens that comes from being emotionally invested in the pieces already there. Every contract, every depth position, Every decision about the crease, every choice around this team needs to be filtered through one question. Does this make the Oilers genuinely harder to beat in a 7-game series, or does it just make them look more complete on paper? Because there is a difference. Edmonton has been paper complete for a while now. What they have not been is built to survive the grind of a deep playoff run when things stop going perfectly. That is the gap Bowman has to close. Not with hope, with actual construction. Because the players circling this conversation right now are not going away. The sport keeps producing contenders. It keeps creating situations where someone else's timing lines up just right. And every time that happens with a player connected even loosely to the McDavid era, the noise in Edmonton gets louder and the pressure on the organization gets heavier. The Oilers are not out of chances. That is the honest truth. McDavid being who he is means the floor of this team is always going to be legitimate. You are never completely rebuilding when he is in your building. But the floor is not what this conversation is about anymore. The floor is established. Everyone knows what Edmonton can be on a good night with McDavid locked in. The question is whether this organization can finally build something that matches his level when it matters most. Right now, the answer to that question is a guy named Hall playing deep into June and a guy named Marner doing the same thing. Two players whose names have been attached to this conversation about McDavid and Edmonton for completely different reasons, both suddenly positioned to do something the Oilers franchise has not done. That lands. It is supposed to land. It is the kind of thing that should sit uncomfortably in that front office until the decisions in the next few months reflect how uncomfortable it actually feels. McDavid is still the best player most people have ever watched. He still does things in a hockey game that genuinely stop you mid-sentence. None of this changes that, but greatness without the right team around it does not finish the story the way it deserves to finish. Edmonton has known that for years. They have talked about it for years. They have made moves designed to fix it for years. The fix has not arrived yet. And the longer this goes, the louder the question gets. Not about whether McDavid is good enough. Nobody serious is asking that. The question is whether the organization around him will ever be. That is what Hall and Marner are putting on the table right now. Edmonton better have an answer ready.